Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to Momentum 2020 Sweatpants Edition, which means you get to be a part of this event from the comfort of your own home tonight. My name is Aaron Bourne, and I'm the director of Men United, the men's ministry of Victory Church, and we exist to help men believe, belong, and lead. You know, as men, sometimes we find ourselves stuck or rolling backwards down the hill, and it is our desire that Momentum be an event to help you regain your footing and direction. So it's Father's Day weekend here at Victory, and this is a time where we celebrate men and especially fathers. I especially want to honor all the fathers out there who have continued to fight for their marriage and their families when so many around them are throwing in the towel. This year, it's been heavy. People are stressed out, overwhelmed. Many are angry and discouraged. And as followers of Jesus, we are serious about not taking ourselves too seriously. So tonight, we invite you to laugh. We are excited to have special guest KevOnStage joining us, as well as a couple of our pastors from here at Victory. From our executive team, Avery Nesbitt, and from our Hamilton Mill campus, our director of student ministries, Matt Robin. Well, gentlemen, welcome to True Confessions. Gentlemen, Avery, Matt.
How's it going?
How are you?
So let me explain the way this is gonna work, gentlemen. Before you, in envelopes, we have two stories that we have each written down and placed in an envelope.
All right.
One story is a truth, one story is a lie. We get to pick which story you're gonna read tonight, and then you're gonna have 60 seconds for us to interrogate you and find out whether or not you're telling the truth or you're lying. Okay. So, you being over student ministries and having to deal with, kids and lies and stuff like that daily, we figure you should kick us off.
Perfect. Got the tough job. I'll go first.
Absolutely.
All right. You guys are picking?
Yep.
Yeah. One or two?
Two.
Two?
Two.
What do you think? Two it is.
All right.
Just before you start, I have a very strong gift of discernment, so.
We'll test that.
Yeah.
Okay. Me and my friends discovered the remains of a dead body from a murder case that had been unsolved for 30 years.
Okay. Let's start the timer. So, first of all, was this yesterday or?
This was not yesterday. This would have been like 94, 95, somewhere in there, 7th grade.
Where was the body?
The body, so I had watched a newscast, and they were telling a story of a 30-year anniversary of a case in our town. I lived in Denver that had gone cold, and when they started telling the facts, I was like, we go by that river all the time. It's the Mississippi River, but there's this like sewage drain-off, runoff. What?
Was it parts of the body? Was it the entire body? Was it like just a finger?
It was the skeletal remains.
Skeletal remains.
Yeah.
Full intact 30-year-old skeletal remains.
Yeah, so my friends lived in a subdivision, and there was like a sewage like runoff drain, and it went like behind their neighborhood, and so we were running down there.
You could go to sleep to this thing.
I know, right? and we found some bones because we'd gone back and found some bones. It was my best friend's brother said he found bones, and I was like, no way, dude. So we went back, found the bones.
Was it his brother or your friends?
Yeah, it was my friend's, but my friend's brother had found it. We went back to where he said he saw bones. Sure enough.
What are you gonna say?
The main players in the story sort of shifted to the brother, to the hearsay, and I've watched a good amount of CSI Vegas, not Miami, and so I consider myself an expert in forensics. I don't think 30 years later you're gonna find bones sitting. He's lying.
I'm gonna have to agree. I mean, Matt, we've known you for years, and you've never once talked about the trauma of finding a dead body. So I'm gonna say it's a lie.
You're right, that's a lie.
Yes!
That was basically the plot from Stand By Me.
Yes! Knew it.
All right, Avery.
Would have been cool, though.
All right.
We're gonna go,
cool.
Since two was definitely a lie, we're gonna go with number one.
Number one.
Number one.
Okay. Story number one. Here we go. When I was a kid, I went door to door selling the school gift kits.
Lies! No, I'm sorry.
And kept every penny for myself.
That sounds so believable.
And sounds legit. How old were you?
I was in middle school.
What was the name of your middle school?
Name of my middle school was, Lauderhill Middle School.
How much money did you make?
At the time, seemed like a whole lot. I probably, in retrospect, maybe $200-300, but I was...
$200-300 door-to-door sales?
Yep.
Selling what?
I'm
Why are
good
you
at
a pastor?
What were you selling?
So you could sell wrapping paper, you could sell gift boxes, you could sell cookies, and it was the same things that they give our kids today. And I always told everyone I needed the money up front so that I could get the.
Did you get caught?
I could get it in. Never got caught. So I tell people I need all the money up front, and I even wrote them like receipts, like cash receipts, and I would write them a receipt, and I would put my address. I would put the wrong address.
He's got the details down.
And I would give it to him, and I would leave, and never got caught.
Man, I want to believe him. I don't want to believe you, but I want to believe you.
You actually didn't even get a chance to ask a whole lot of questions, so it's up to you.
It's believable. It's believable.
Why? You just want to see if you could get away with it?
I needed $200.
It was premeditated?
Oh, this was planned for weeks.
Okay.
I had no intention on actually selling things.
I'll be honest.
But I just needed the cash.
This sounds like something I could see you doing. Like, I'm gonna have. I don't know. I'm gonna say it's true.
I'm gonna disagree. I think it's false.
That was the truth. That was a true story. And Mrs. Johnson from apartment 731, I apologize. You are never getting that porcelain cat wrapping paper.
Oh, God.
It's not happening.
All right, what's the statute of limitations on that?
I'm assuming it ended yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
enough.
True story.
All right.
All right.
1, 2. We'll go number 2.
2.
Because poo.
Okay.
Because
poo.
That's a good reason.
That's a good way to start off the day.
Lies.
He called it.
I once killed and buried my dad's girlfriend's cat in the woods.
You once killed and buried.
Killed and buried.
Yeah. Because I'm a gentleman.
What's the relation again?
My dad's girlfriend's cat in the woods.
I see, just with no additional details, I see no reason to believe why this wouldn't be true.
How did you kill it?
Shot to the head.
Again,
I didn't make him dig his own hole, though. I'm not like, here's your last smoke. And
Shot to the head.
was there a reason?
it was old, senile. It was starting to have a miserable life, bumping into
Did the
walls.
girlfriend know?
Yeah. She wanted to put it down. And if you know anything about my family, that's a lot of money to have an animal put down when you could just take it out in the woods and handle it yourself.
And she was okay with it.
Yeah. So, well, we weren't going to tell her how we were putting it down. Dad was like, I'll handle it. And he just called me. He's like, Aaron, I know your background, and could you take care of this for me?
Wait, I've got so many
animal
other stories.
He knows how I feel about cats.
So not the background of murder, just the background of cats. Got it.
I want to see what's in the other envelope.
I know. We need a second round.
True. I'm going true.
I don't think I would ever call a bluff on a story Aaron tells.
You just don't know.
You just don't know.
But this sounds completely, this happened.
Yeah, 100% happened.
So it's actually a lie.
What?
But
What?
but it nearly happened. So up until the point, like, he called me. I said, yes, I would do it.
I'm mad.
And then the cat died before I got the chance. So we just
No,
didn't have
you
to.
had already mentally killed that cat.
So I had a plan. I had a plan. No, I mean, at that point, they took care of it themselves.
Okay.
But I mean,
Had you buried it, I would have counted
this
that
is
as
why this
that's-
story
that's
in my
close
mind is almost
This,
true.
this happened. This happened before it happened.
You already planned it
Okay.
all
I
the way
pictured
out.
walking the cat out in the woods, telling him to dig his own hole, giving him one last smoke, and then, yeah.
That's not right.
But it's nothing wrong with that. If you've been at Victory for a while, you know how our church feels about cats.
Okay, so why is it that you can kill and we believe it? I find death and you're like, nope.
No, never happened.
No way. Never
happened.
happened.
Well, because I would have expected you to be traumatized by it.
Nah.
I mean, for
But
me.
we would not expect him to be traumatized.
Right. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
All right. Well, good job, gentlemen. Very, very good. Clearly, we know each other very well.
Extremely.
All right. Well, gentlemen, next for you tonight, we have our special guest joining us live from LA, KevOnStage. You've seen it on Instagram, you've seen it on YouTube, Facebook, or your local comedy club. And man, we have a great conversation in store for you tonight. So stick with us. We'll see you in a minute. Gentlemen, welcome back to Momentum. We are glad you are with us tonight. It is Father's Day weekend, and man, we are excited to have KevOnStage with us.
Hello, friends. Thank
up,
you guys
Kev?
for having me.
So Kev,
I feel like I need to yell. I know I don't need to, but I felt you feel so far, so I feel like I need to say hello, hello, hello.
that sounds like a normal tone to me, man. That's good. Man, we are glad you're with us tonight. We're talking about the future of men, the future of manhood. And so, man, we wanted, you were known as one of the greatest philosophers of our time. And we wanted to pick your brain about where men are going moving forward. So,
Okay.
well,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I wasn't gonna say nothing. It was dead space, so I was gonna feel it.
Well, man, it has been a crazy year. I know that you were. We were just talking before we started here tonight about your travel itinerary, where you were supposed to be, and we had all these plans of what we were going to be doing this year. And the man, it has ran off the rails. So
Didn't it like? I'm not saying God caused a pandemic or allowed it, but I feel like God was like, "Oh, y'all thought y'all had plans, huh? Y'all had got real comfortable doing whatever y'all thought. Okay, now watch this. You ain't doing nothing now. What's up?" And I feel like that's been me this whole time. Like I have some Arabic friends, Muslim friends, and they always say "Inshallah," meaning God willing, after every statement. And I didn't understand that, and I was like, "Why do you say that?" He's like, "Man, because you just never know. You say God willing if God allows it." And I hadn't been saying that. And now I will be saying that. Like, hey, man, it was 2020. I thought I had all type of plans and none of them came to pass like I thought they would.
Yeah. True story.
well, man, if we didn't have all this going on, we would have you here in studio with us talking to you live. But we're going to do the next best thing and talk to you from LA. So those of you watching, we are not drinking beer. This is actually Red Rock Ginger Ale, made right here in Atlanta, Georgia. It just burns the nostrils. So it is, if you haven't had one of these before and you really want to hurt yourself, they didn't sponsor the event or nothing. They shouldn't be getting a commercial, but it's good stuff. So, but anyway, well, man, let's just dive right into it. So first question I have for you tonight, man, is that it is difficult for men not to tie their identities to what they do or what they have or what their occupation is. So as a comedian, how has this quarantine impacted you,
You know what's crazy about that? That's such a true statement, right? Like I'm a comedian, like I like making people laugh, but it's also my job, right? So I feel like if I'm not going out and telling jokes and bringing money back to my house and depositing it, I feel like I'm not doing my job as a man. You know what I mean? Now, I do other things for money and I'm not hurting for money or any way, but I absolutely was tying my identity to what I could provide, like financially, you know what I mean? And even though I've done a good job of that and my wife, makes her own money and, kids aren't even asking for anything, it just felt like that was the man thing to do. Like on TV, you watch, even back in the 50s, dad goes out, he works, he comes home, I saw my dad, he was in the army and he went out to work and he went out to war and he came home. And it's just like sitting at home, I feel like I'm not being a full man, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I'm not fulfilling all of my duties, even if I am still getting paid to do stuff. And I realized even all the traveling is definitely harmful on your family. You know what I mean? Like on your kids, that much being gone. But I guess I just gotten accustomed to this. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, there's no way I would have ever stopped for this amount of time ever. Even if I knew it was, the back of your mind, this is like hard on your family, on your marriage. But I still wouldn't have stopped. I would have tried to make the most out of every woman I had, but I never would have put myself on a pause like this on purpose. And I'm not glad it happened, but I am trying to make the most of it.
I think I see it in a lot of what Kev is saying and a lot of just in everyday life with normal guys that I'm talking to. What you do is identical to who you are. Therefore, if you are not doing, then you aren't. Right. But whether it's pandemic or not, if a guy's unemployed, he feels less than. If a guy's underemployed, he feels less than. And so it's going to be a huge uphill battle for guys that are going through a rough time, whether it be, in their jobs or economically, to break from the thing on my business card is attached to not only who I am, but how you see me. How you see me, how God sees me. We put those in one bucket and it's bad. It is bad news because it just destroys who you are from the inside out.
Yeah, I had when our second daughter was born, I stayed home for a year with her. And so I've been through this before. I've had that whole, quarantine. The whole world doesn't know I exist right now.
A year.
A year. Yeah. Yeah. So
I did too. I got fired. I got fired from my job, and I had to be a stay-at-home dad for a year. And that rocked me to my core. I remember having to make breakfast, and I made my wife lunch and handed it to her for her to take to work, and she kissed me on the forehead. And I was like, hey, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Just take the lunch and go. Do not kiss me on the forehead like that.
I was good up
and
until that
I immediately was like, I got to get a job. I cannot let that happen again.
Wow.
Yeah, man, that was the hardest year of my life for sure, and it shouldn't be, but it was. But yeah, man, I think we have a lot of men that are coming up to us right now saying, they've lost their jobs, the economy's turned upside down, and guys are just lost right now. They're like, well, who am I without this? And so I think it's good from time to time just to have things shaken up and find out kind of what are you standing on, what are you putting your foundation on. So.
Yeah, I feel like a friend of mine, he used this analogy. He said the quarantine is like halftime. Like we've been approaching life this way, and we've been getting our butt kicked. And you got to get in there, like regroup, say, hey, we were trying this. This was working before, but this isn't working. So, what adjustments we, can make. All the great coaches of I don't know how into sports you guys are, but judging by the ginger ale, I feel like you guys follow at least one sport.
Yeah, at least one.
All the greatest coaches are the ones who can make good adjustments, on the fly at halftime. And I feel like this is what quarantine is bringing out of us. Like, how can we adjust? How can we take what's being dealt, to us and make the best out of it, even if it's not an ideal circumstance?
Yeah, that's good. So looking at manhood, looking at kind of the way culture sees things, are you optimistically hopeful or are you discouraged about the future of masculinity? So do you see manhood improving or declining?
I definitely am hopeful. I feel like, a lot of the tropes of manhood we had were wrong. Like, growing up as a kid, like if you fall or you hurt yourself and you cry, you're a crybaby, right? Like even if I remember a friend of mine was saying like his friend broke his leg and they were like, man, don't cry. Are you gonna take this for real? Like, bro, he has a broken limb. Like what kind of insane pressures are we putting on ourselves that you can't even cry if you break your leg? Right. So I feel like with my sons, I'm not passing off the ridiculous pressures of masculinity, like, because that's harmful to your children. It's harmful to your wife. Like I was taught, crying or weak, any showing emotion is weakness. Right. And then when when you're married, your wife wants you to be vulnerable. And I feel like it's counterproductive or counterintuitive to who I am to share my fears. And I realized like, if I didn't learn to change, I was going to have a problem in my marriage and I might have ended my marriage. So I want to start my kids off from a healthier position than where I started. And a lot of that comes with model behavior, which is saying even little things like it's okay to cry if you hurt yourself or if you're sad, like there's nothing wrong with crying. Crying is healthy, things like that. So I think a lot of us are being challenged in a lot of ways this year, and it's up to us to rise to the challenge to learn, grow, and adapt.
That's good. How about you guys, Matt, Avery?
Yeah, I think for me, like being a youth pastor, I work with high schoolers. So I want to be hopeful, but I also see a lot of what's going on. Usually what I deal with is like their low points in life. And so for me, I think before, if you didn't fit the stereotype of manhood, you just weren't manly. Now I feel like they get separated from stereotypes of manhood so early that they find alternatives. And that part I don't like. But at the same time, I think masculinity is more complex in a good way. That it's not just this little tiny box of what a man is or isn't, but there's more to it. This is also manly. We just didn't put it in the box before. And so I think that's allowing a great opportunity for young men to find manhood the way God created them to be man. And that part's encouraging for me.
I think from my end, it's my generation was the one that grew up without the dads, right? And so I get to be a part of the generation that decides we're gonna stick it out. We're gonna stay here. We're not going anywhere. But we didn't necessarily get the 19-year the example to see.
You didn't get the instruction
I
manual.
didn't get the instruction manual. I just got the keys. All right, you're a man now. What do I do with this? And so all I do know is that I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes me at least the most hopeful is I was raised by a single mom. And so a lot of the things that I learned were her doing the best that she could. And so, I'm taking the best that she could, the best that I can, but I'm staying here. And I'm going to do my part to at least show my kids. Because I got the boy and the girl, and it's when he falls and cries and he runs at me, that first response is the like, boy, don't cry. And then I remember hearing someone tell me that and thinking, but I'm hurt. So isn't that what we do? Like when something hurts, like we cry. And so it's all of those things where you have to decide so quick as a dad. What am I turning this young man into? It's these super quick decisions. That's the crutch of parenting. It's these like little micro decisions that happen, but it's everything that, you guys are saying. It's these moments that turn into lifetimes, but we didn't get that growing up. And so we can say we're either on the back end trying to figure it out, or we can just take the good, the bad, and the ugly and just stick it out with our family. So I feel like there's hope because we're not giving up. So there's hope because we're staying in it.
That's good.
Yeah. Kev, you got sons, right? Is it 2 sons or?
Two boys, 11 and 13.
So, and did you grow up on military bases? I think I heard someone you had a military family.
Yeah, my dad was in the military. My parents got married when I was like 7 years old. So we grew up on Army bases in El Paso, Texas, Alexandria, Virginia, Fayetteville, North Carolina, back to El Paso, then Fort Lewis, Washington, and then I became a man.
In Washington State?
In Washington State, I became a man, yeah.
So how is I was military, Avery was military. So being around that military environment.
Sorry. Community college.
They just left you out. Yeah, we were military, so yeah, man.
Like, get over here.
Guess everybody doesn't love our country, I guess.
Oh man, I do.
Get them cold, bro. Y'all put them on the end of the couch, man. Y'all sat next to each other. You pushed them to the side.
I'm not even in the shot. That's what you don't know. They don't even see me.
So, how watching that and being around that environment, that military environment, did that impact the way you're raising your sons, or where did you get your ideas of what kind of father you're going to be?
Actually, I not much from the military. My dad was in the military, but I feel like I'm a great dad because he was a great dad. Mm-hmm. He married my mom and he took on 3 children that weren't his own, and he showed us unconditional love. Or, well, conditional. If the room wasn't clean, there was less love. So I think only God is capable of unconditional love. But he showed us how to love, how to provide, how to argue without yelling. He never disrespected my mom. So I learned so much from him about being a husband and a father from just the model behavior. So I feel like that was the great example for me, was watching him raise us and love my mom. It was the best example ever. So I'm just really duplicating that behavior for my kids. And then hopefully they have, that same behavior to duplicate for their children, but also learn from my mistakes, like I learned from my dad's mistakes.
That's good. That's cool. So as we're looking to the future of what manhood is going to look like, what culture says about masculinity, what about man spreading? Is that okay, or is that sort of like a nod to an ancient past? Because people want to know, is that going to be okay?
Are you asking for you?
Asking for my wife. She wants to know, is this going to continue, or is this going to stop?
Man, I'm telling you, I am the biggest man spreader ever. I am so trash, and I don't even realize it. It also doesn't help. My wife is very small. So like when we're on a plane together, I just take full advantage of her space. I'm just like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm 6'2". I'm a big boy, man. I'm a big boy. So I want to be better, but it's going to take some time. I've been aware of it, and my awareness is her just like elbowing my leg. So I'm definitely aware of it now, and I'm working on it, but it's gonna take some time.
How about you guys? I mean, my father sat like this. He still sits like this to this day, but he has a different body type. I mean, that just happens naturally. I can't pull that off, man. I mean, my legs don't even cross.
At the ankles, that's about all you can get. I think, like Kev said, once you've been made aware, that's when you can do better. But it's going to take a couple of decades. Just let your wife know. We'll all be dead before this is resolved.
2020. we don't do this anymore.
Sorry, Natalie, wherever you are.
So, what are the key characteristics of manhood that should not change no matter what culture does? Yeah, I mean, the things that I get, we don't smoke cigars in the hospital when our babies are born anymore. Chauvinism is no longer in style. So, things change in culture, but what are the things about manhood that do not change no matter what?
I think, protecting your family, I think that idea, should be there. What that means, might change. I think, we coming up with the idea of, like there's stuff my wife can't do. There's a lot of stuff my wife can do. I just feel like it's my unction to do. You're like, one thing that's definitely not going to change is checking out the scary sounds in the house. As much as I would like that to change, my wife, she's all independent until there's a bump in the night downstairs. Then it's like, no, you the man of the house. Like, no, you INDEPENDENT. You check some sounds out. So I feel like the protecting part will be there, and also the hierarchy of we should be able to lead our families, and leadership has to be redefined though. When I was young and married, I thought leadership was I'm going to tell my wife what to do or tell my wife what we're going to do. And a real leader is, hey, let me present a plan and let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Let's work out the kinks. Even the great Army general wouldn't just say, here's a plan, you guys follow it blindly. Like he would consult with the other leaders and and then take into account what they say. And I think, for me as the man of my house, that doesn't mean what I say goes. It means I'm the one that should take, sometimes take the first stab at what we should do and then present it to my wife. And let's work through what we think is the best course of action and then follow it, as opposed to I'm the man, you do what I say, because that definitely doesn't fly. Even if that did fly in culture, it wasn't going to fly in my house.
How about you guys? What do y'all say?
Man, there's a lot to that. I mean, like I said, as everything's swirling and you're fighting what were bad stereotypes and what if I carried that, like, I assume should be on forever, but maybe shouldn't, and all of those things. But I think a lot, like what you said, Kev, of just like leading, going first, doing the hard things, whatever that means. And again, so before it looked a few very small different ways, now there's a lot of different ways it can look to lead. Sometimes it's staying home, sometimes it's working, sometimes it's providing, sometimes it's apologizing. I know that's something for me that I've personally tried to carry on a lot of, is like the perception of parents have to be perfect. And I know as a dad, like there's been so many times we've punished our kids and we just carried it out, and then like they're off in the room and I'm like, I did that horrible. Like what, I did that so bad. Yep. And the difference now is I'll go back and apologize. Hey, we're not perfect. I want you to know when you're 10, I'm doing the best I can. I don't want you to realize that when you're 32. I want you to know now I'm not perfect, but I'm doing the best that I can. And you're never going to be perfect either, but I'm going to lead you in an improving life.
I give my kids a disclaimer. I say, listen, kids, I'm probably going to jack you up a little bit, but I'm putting money aside for your counseling. It's part of the college fund. Yeah. How about you, Avery?
I think it's a combination of everything you guys are saying, going first, protecting. I think a big part for me is identity. I feel like the one of the core responsibilities of the male, the man in the family, is to provide that identity. And again, raised by a single mom, she couldn't really tell me, well, this is what a man does, because she didn't really know. And the things that she would give me were menial at best. I remember my mom saying, a man always wears a watch. And I'm like, that's it?
Right.
That's it? That's what it takes? Like, I saw an old lady with a watch yesterday. Like, I don't know where the line is. So, a man always has $100 in his pocket. I don't know what $100 looks like right now. So she would give me what she had as a definition of a man. And I was just like, So it wasn't until I met dudes that I respected and got into, an organization, the military, the Marine Corps, to get, okay, this is what it feels like. For me, it's everything you guys are saying, but it's identity. I go out of the way to make sure that my kids know how I feel about them, how God feels about them, how I see them, how God sees them, to put some sort of identity in it. If we don't do anything else, we are going to make sure that our kids know who they are to us and who they are in Christ, in addition to getting up and seeing what the sound is down the hall, because my wife is not getting up. Yeah. I have killed a spider and a cricket in the last 24 hours while everyone in the house screamed and ran the other direction. It is pretty boss, because I feel like I'm walking into the room, and then there's a spider, and he's a lot faster than I anticipated. And so I'm not proud of the sound that came out of my mouth, but I killed the spider. That's all it really.
No proof. That was a spider screaming.
Proof.
That wasn't me.
There's no proof.
I was just cracking up at your mom saying a man has a watch at $100
at all times.
So if you forgot your watch and you had $88, are you not a man?
Nope.
Like, what?
You might be 80%
you have to have 100 plus, a crisp 100,
520. 100 minimum.
100 minimum. Okay.
Yeah. I've only been a man about 6 times in my life.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know.
Does your debit card count, or do you have to have 100 cash? I need to know.
You got to go to the ATM.
Why cash?
I remember going to dinner. We just totally off subject. I remember going to dinner, a grown man going to dinner with my mom, and we go to pay, and she says, "You don't have cash?" And I was like, "No, I don't even know where I would get cash at the moment." She's like, just the disappointment just came over her. And I was like, I can't win. This was not that long ago, just so we're all clear.
This was like last week.
This was recent history. This is not long ago. So be careful where you get your definition, guys. Be careful where you get your definition.
Yeah, so in addition to that, I'd say just taking responsibility for your community. And I know that may sound kind of cliche, but it's basically life is not about you. To me, one of the biggest pieces of being a man is being able to sacrifice what you want, what you think, your own comforts for the better of those around you, those that you are responsible for. And I think that's the biggest, to me, that's what I've seen lacking in modern day manhood the most, is men not willing to take responsibility. And I think that's the thing that needs to exist in culture no matter what, is men willing to do the hard work, do the things that no one else wants to do, getting up early, staying up late, doing that painful stuff. To me, that's a big piece of what being a man is. Yes, providing, yes, protecting, but that's not always being the bread earner, and it's not always being the one to kill the spider. I mean, but it is protecting, it's creating a safe environment for your family and things like that.
But even protecting could be that year you stayed home with your family, with your kids. You know what I mean? I think even doing things like that, like I think, casting aside, that's women's work, like, taking care of my kids. Like I had friends when I was younger, like I got to babysit my kids. Like, how do you babysit your children? That's just being a dad. What are you talking about? You babysit other people's kids, So I think, casting aside a lot of the stereotypes that are often reinforced by media and TV and things like that, is what we have to do. And some of the things that we do now, we might not even know they're harmful. So, manhood is also about evolving and changing with times as we learn and we gain more information. It's about applying that and changing and not always feeling like we know everything and we know the right thing.
That's true. That's good, man. So what is the most annoying thing about being a man? Who wants to tackle that one? I'm going to get some popcorn.
The most annoying thing for me is having to be the one who's not scared of stuff. Like, I don't watch scary movies. People are like, why? Because I don't like being scared. I don't like jump scares. I don't like monsters. I don't like the demon stuff in scary movies. I don't want to be scared. I don't like checking out the sounds because I don't want to be scared. I don't like the way the trees in the moonlight makes those shapes in your room. I don't like that, okay? So I just want to be scared with everybody else. The children and the women, I want to be scared with them.
I'm right there with you, man. I don't do scary movies. I don't care how big I get. I don't care what my background is. I don't watch scary movies. I will scream.
Yeah.
I will scream.
And you're still a man.
Absolutely. Now, I'll punch you if you say I'm not, but I'm but I'm not watching a scary movie.
So there's some toxic in there.
Absolutely.
But I'm still a man.
Now, how about you guys? What's the most annoying thing about being a man?
So I've never been the biggest guy in the room. I don't think ever. You know, maybe if I visited a kindergarten class one time. But for me, it's that whole like, you got to be big, you got to be strong. Like, if a guy's in the room, you size it up and you conclude that fight in your head. Can I win it or not? It does a lot of extra thinking for me because I need props and I need weapons and I need a strategy. And so I've always had to surround myself with big friends. Like, that's something I've always done. And so it's the whole like, you don't want to have little man syndrome, like that. You don't want to be that guy, but that stereotype of like, I will never be 6'2" and big. I can't do that.
I get that.
I love the visual of you always looking for a weapon when you enter a room. Like, all right, so I got this. If it goes sideways, I got the ginger ale right here. I got the microphone.
I'm with you.
My shoe. Flip flop.
Or I'm faster. I always think, am I faster than that guy?
Right. I can't beat you. I can at least get away.
Yeah.
I don't know one dude that's not sizing somebody up at some moment.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
100%. You see a dude, you're like, that's a cool guy. I could take him. Here's what it is. I don't know if everybody knew that. We might have just let everybody in on a really big
How
secret.
shallow we are.
How shallow and broken.
It doesn't mean you're going to do something about it. It just means like...
Just in case.
It's the case.
Like I said,
know where you're
2020, Lord willing. That's you make no assumptions in 2020.
I think for me, it's having to have the answers all the time.
Yeah.
For any scenario that may come up. So whether it be pandemic race riots, you got to have the answer. So whether it's on work or even in family, when someone looks at you and say, "What do we do?" You're like, I don't know. I'm in this with you. I have no idea what to do. But you can't really do that. You got to have something. So, like you were saying, Kev, coming up with the plan, that takes a minute sometimes. So to me, it's the most annoying part is always having to have the answer for something. And then you add leader on top of manhood, and it just makes it exponentially more complicated. Don't be the guy who's the most powerful man in the room, the most senior man in the room, and then not have something of quality to say when someone says, "What do we do?"
Right.
Yeah.
It is terrifying to think, I can't take a minute and think just like you're thinking. I got to have the answer because you pointed at me. It's that's probably the most annoying part is what do we do now?
Yeah.
Well, let's all just go to lunch, come back and figure it out. But you don't normally get that.
Well, I think it's the stereotypes, especially, being a men's pastor. I play to them a lot because they exist for a reason. But people expecting you to follow the stereotype of whatever a man is, you always want sex. You are always hungry. You're always, whatever it is, like whatever those stereotypes are, now they may be true, but I don't like the fact that that they exist or that people have already classified me by it.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, so when are you going to start naming the stereotypes? This is just me right now.
You just stating facts at the moment. I'm still waiting.
Oh man, but yeah.
Men's pastor.
All right, so we got time for I think one more question. We have here at Victor, we got all generations of men in this church. We got young men, old men. For the ones that are up and coming, what is the advice you give to a young man who's starting off in life? What would you want to tell him?
I think I believe it was Avery who said this, and I think this is so key. It's okay to not know. I think we always feel like we have to know. Not knowing can mean you don't know. It can mean you're going to learn. But I feel like we always feel like because we are in the room, we have to have an answer or the right answer. So I would start there, and there's nothing wrong with the listening. And this is to my young self. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to act like you know everything. There's a lot of value in listening to the people who do know what they're talking about, and it's okay to cry. I feel like there's a lot of wasted, men. We not wasted, but we have this pent up emotion, and it comes out in an unhealthy way because we are not learning to express it the right way. So I just started therapy maybe 6 weeks ago.
Congrats.
And I realized, there's some stuff in there that was just untreated, So I'm learning to work through some of that stuff so I don't pass it on to my kids, because I want to pass off the good things. But if you don't work through the bad things, you end up passing that on as well. And that's part of parenthood is trying to pass on as much positive and as little negative, I think.
That's good, man. That's good. That's good. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
That was really good. No, that was really good. I think
What up, y'all? It's boy KevOnStage.
Sorry, my computer is on the fritz. It just played that.
I guess, and we're done here. No, thanks for your time.
I'm like, yo, what? Why? I'm not talking, but I am talking.
He's a
I
ventriloquist.
need a new laptop, guys. It's freaking out.
No, I would say real quick, one thing, I don't think it's the biggest thing, but I think another thing is just learning the difference between risky and reckless. First, decide that, but then go take some risks. Even when we were sharing some of our fun stories earlier, there's so much great memories, whether it went well or didn't go well. I learned a lot either way. Yeah. And I always try to live life through the lens of, I want to tell my kids good stories. I want it to be an adventure worth telling. And so step out, take risks, take some God risks, put your faith in action, and do something that you're going to be proud of when you look back on.
I think that the one thing that I do say, at least pretty frequently, to my kids is just be you. Never be ashamed to be you. Never be ashamed to have. Never be ashamed to have the color skin you have. Never be ashamed to have the size hair you have. Never be ashamed of any single part that God put in you. And to me, that encompasses all of the other stuff. So if you're the risk taker, then be the best freaking risk taker that you know. If you're more reserved, then own it and don't apologize for who you are. It would be never be ashamed to be you at any moment, at any time.
That's good.
So good. So good.
I think I would add, for me, what made a difference is I've always have, in every stage of my life, I've had older men around who have kind of just modeled it to me. So areas where maybe my dad didn't know something or he didn't maybe show me that, there was different men in my life that just modeled, men that modeled what it means to follow Jesus, men that modeled what it means to be on time, to manage your finances, just different guys. I don't have one guy that just did it all, but I've got like 8 guys. They've just modeled that in my life throughout every stage, and that's largely made me who I am today. And, men that are going the same direction, that have the same worldview, that see things through the same lens, through the Bible, things like that, that has had a massive impact on my life. So that's cool. Well, Kev, any last thoughts, man? It's been awesome having you here tonight.
Oh, man, I just want to echo Avery and saying being you, there's so much power in that. My oldest son, we were talking, he was like, I think I'm a nerd. Like I was hanging with the cool kids, but they said it's not cool to shoot and edit videos with my friends. So if that makes me not cool, then I'm okay with that. Boom. And he's into like animation and drones and anime. And I'm like, bro, I wish I had the courage to be who I really was when I was 12. I played with toys much later into life than most people. I mean, I was 13, 14 at home going, bzz, 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 like really making the sound. Him knowing that he can sit in his room and animate, he has this little animation software, and he feels completely fine that that's what he likes to do. There's so much power in that, and supporting that is going to help him know that when he gets older, he doesn't have to try and be what he isn't. You know what I mean? Because that almost always leads to a path you don't want to go down, trying to be somebody you aren't. So I just think that was so good to say. And
then they make fun of him for that. He can just tell him he's probably going to be their boss one day anyway. So
absolutely. He absolutely is going to be their boss. So 100%. I love that.
Well, awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been awesome.
Sure.
Man. Cool. So, guys, if you haven't seen Kev before, check out KevOnStage on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, pretty much anywhere you turn on a computer, he's there. And as soon as this pandemic goes away, you can catch him live in Atlanta at one of his next shows as well.
Absolutely. I'll be down there. Tickets on me, guys. Bring some of the ginger ale.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, man. We appreciate you, brother.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Men, thank you guys for being with us tonight. This has been awesome. This has been hilarious. Had a great time just talking with the guys. Listen, if this is your first time watching, or even if you belong to Victory and you've been to our men's events before, next steps for you is if when we were talking about what's going on in the world and how overwhelming that is and how isolating that can feel, if you can relate to that, and if you're wondering, where do I go from here? How do I get out of isolation? We invite you to go to connecttovictory.com, find out what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to have a biblical worldview, how to get involved with a men's small group, and just next steps in general. So we hope you enjoyed this tonight. We hope you'll join us on our services online this weekend and at our next men's breakfasts, men's events online. So thanks for being with us tonight, and we will